believe it or not, was Tuvia. And the Yiddish translation of Tuvia is Tevya.
Mm.
So the rabbi was making a comparison. He said, maybe Moses shouldn't have been Charlton Heston. It should have been Zero Mostel, who played Tevye in the movie Fiddler on the Roof, which was pretty funny,
That's funny.
But,
although we love Charlton Heston, nobody can play Moses like him.
That's true. But you see, one thing they never taught us in Hebrew school, because I love history. And while I was an honor student in Hebrew school, Sundays was always Jewish history. And we all know that Moses married one of Jethro's 7 daughters, the oldest daughter, Zipporah, but the Midianites were black. And nobody ever mentioned that, and I was very surprised, and I what was going through my mind was, gee, now you're talking about back in the 50s, because that's when I was a young boy going to Hebrew school. Maybe, because in those days, maybe they just didn't want it to be known that Moses married a black woman.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know what sort of complexion. I don't know if she wasn't the kind of black we would expect.
Well,
when we hear the word black or dark skin, we think like African American.
She was dark skinned. She wasn't a Nubian. Nubians are very dark.
There's somebody that's making a loud rubbing noise. Either Lisa or Chad.
I don't hear any.
I think it's his stomach.
Okay.
No, you know what? My refrigerator. I'm in the kitchen and the refrigerator is kind of loud. It's got a motor problems. I don't know. It's not very loud right now, but I'm wondering if you can hear it.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was probably Lisa falling asleep listening to us.
No.
Well, it's gone. Whoever it was, it's gone.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
So we're happy about that.
Well, that's interesting about that. I would caution, if you guys want a good Bible teacher. Look, I'll introduce you to one. His name is John MacArthur. And you should check him out because he expounds on the scriptures in its truest sense. I don't know a better teacher, to be honest with you, besides my own pastor. But I'm very biased when it comes to my own pastor. John MacArthur is my favorite. He can expound on the scriptures, and what I would do, go onto his website, grace2you or gty.org.
Wait a second, I gotta write it down.
Just wait, this noise is gotta go off. I guess you're all hearing that, right? Everybody's hearing that?
Start your show now. Press 1.
What's going on?
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Okay, we're done with that. Sorry about that.
We're back?
Well, we've been back the whole time. Now we're back on Spreaker also. I mean, on Block Talk Radio. We've been on Spreaker the whole time.
Piece of paper.
Blog Talk.
Block Talk Radio. By the way, it's not
Blog Talk Radio.
It's not Block Talk. It's the problem. It's us.
So, Mark, it's grace2you.org, okay? gty.org.
Wait. I'm getting a piece of paper to write it down, so hold off for a second.
All right.
Or just, all right.
And you can't go wrong with John MacArthur, man. Oh boy.
Okay,
but you gotta love that.
What's his website?
It's grace2you.org.
Say that again?
Grace2you. Grace2you. GTY.org. I could say it like a radio voice, right? GTU.org.
GTU.org?
Yep.
Very good. You are hired.
Yeah. GTY.
Oh, why?
25% off on your next purchase.
And what's his name?
John MacArthur.
I want you to hear something that Mark does pretty well. When he does that Reverend from down south.
Oh, you're talking about Imus in the morning?
Yeah, I don't know.
The Reverend Billy Saul Hargis from the First Church of the Gooey Death and Discount House of Worship.
Yeah, you never heard that, right?
This is before your time, Chad. When I used to drive into work when I worked in Brooklyn. This is like when I was first teaching. Imus was working for.
I don't know if he knows Imus is even.
Well,
before Stern came in New York.
Do you know who Imus is?
Don Imus.
Don Imus.
He used to get into trouble. I mean, half the time he never called in and he wasn't there and he was using drugs and he was a drunk. But anyway, he had this character, the Reverend Billy Saul Hargis from the First Church of the Gooey Death and Discount House of Worship from Del Rio, Texas. And his theme song was, I don't care if it rains or freezes as long as I got my plastic Jesus riding on the dashboard of my car. I could go 100 miles an hour. I forgot the rest. Yeah. It's terrible. But the bottom line is, he used to make fun of religion. Okay, that was his thing. He got into a lot of trouble with NBC. In fact, when he was ostracized to Cleveland, Ohio, he used to call Cleveland the armpit of America.
Oh, jeez.
You know, now he has like he's still on the radio, but he also has a cable station on TV.
Is he still on?
I think so. You know, at a certain time during the morning, early morning.
I know he's on the radio, but I don't know about anything else.
I don't know.
I didn't even know that he was on the radio still.
Yeah, he's on ABC.
Unfortunately, he's quite old now, and he really looks like the drugs and the alcohol have taken its toll.
Oh my God, he looks terrible. He looks literally disgusting. Richard looks better than him.
He broadcasts the show while he's taking oxygen in.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
But he does a lot of good He does a lot of volunteer work.
He and his brother started a ranch in Colorado or Montana.
In Texas.
For
in Texas.
Like children who are very ill, and they get the experience of being on a ranch and riding a horse and everything, you know, and so he's trying to give back to the community, you know, what he didn't do when he was younger.
How old is he now?
70-something.
Yeah, he's in his mid to late 70s, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because when you said old, I was like, how old could he possibly be? Because I remember him.
And Brad, you have no idea who we're talking about. Chatham, you have no idea who we're talking about, right?
I know who Don Imus is. Only because I used to listen years ago before my Christ things. I used to listen to a lot of Howard Stern, and Howard Stern would talk about Don Imus.
Yeah,
so I know.
Well, I guess the Howard Stern sort of started like a.
Imus was like the mentor to Howard Stern.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, they didn't get along in the beginning, but I don't know what happened after that. But but it is interesting. I don't know. I would have a very interesting discussion. Don Imus would probably be the kind of guy. I don't know. It sounded like he didn't like religion. He'd be the kind of guy I would probably not evangelize to. Just not because I'm better than him, just because we're commanded not to cast pearls before swine and dogs that want to tear into me. So I would probably stay away from somebody like Don Imus. Hey, I want to talk to Elisa. Do you think I could talk to Elisa? I haven't talked to her. Pick on her for a while.
I want to say about Don Imus. He has a lot of good causes, and I know that doesn't mean that he's saved or anything, but he's done a lot for sick children in humanity.
Well, but you find when people get old,
and I know that means
they start turning to religion because they know it's coming close to the end.
I don't think he is.
Anyway,
God can save Don Imus. It's God can only see his heart. I don't. Why does God send missionaries into the most remotest areas of parts of the world where some tribes who've never seen a white person before? Because for whatever reason, God has chosen that for those race of people to be able to hear the gospel. And in some cases, actually, you might be fascinated with the missionary story. Check this out. If you like history, Mark, you might really love this story. Splender's. Okay, it's the story that goes along with the end of the spear. I forgot the race of people, and I forgot the name of the missionary. Shame on me. I think it's the Splendor Gate or something like that. You have to look it up on Google. And it's a missionary story of these men who bring their lives into this very remote area of the world. It's like the Amazon kind of thing. And they end up reaching this indigenous people who end up spearing the men to death. They end up killing them. And all these men wanted to do was to give the gospel to this tribe. Well, the women were stuck in their campsite miles away from where this has happened. Once they found out their men died, they took some time to mourn, but they went back to reach the tribe themselves. They end up giving the gospel. That tribe end up receiving Christ as their Savior, and they end up becoming family members of the women and eventually their children. So here you have his indigenous people who have never seen a white person before kill the men and end up getting saved and becoming grandfather and grandmother to their wives and their children. Tell me that isn't crazy.
Well, unfortunately, that was the fate of many early missionaries who were sent to teach the word, spread the word to, I guess they used to call them heathens, but the thing is, what the missionaries didn't understand was that these tribes had their own religion. They did have a god or many gods, whatever. So, I mean, they had a religion of their own. They never really respected the religion of the tribesmen themselves, So
that's why God sends them. God sends them to the people, regardless of what religion they have. God says, I want them to hear the gospel. And in some cases, these tribesmen get saved, and now that's what Paul did. Apostle Paul, he was a Jew.
That's right.
He was a Hebrew of Hebrews. He went into Gentile land, places where they worshiped many gods, pagan gods.
Wasn't I mean, at the very beginning, wasn't Paul? I mean, we've already confirmed this. Paul was a Pharisee, wasn't he? I mean, Paul.
He was a Pharisee,
right?
Yep, he was a Pharisee.
He
got converted,
and he was tracking down the followers of Jesus and actually having them stoned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what ended up happening. At some point he got stoned, he got shipwrecked, he got whipped, he got thrown off places. I mean, he got beat up so hard, but he kept going. And what's amazing about Paul's story is at least 7 times in the book of Acts, when you read the story, it's actually a continuation of the Gospel of Luke. I believe that Luke was the writer of the book of Acts. Well, anyway, what's interesting is Acts, it really is the continuation, the story of what happens after Jesus dies on the cross and was raised from the dead. You have the church. You have the church birth from the time Jesus ascended. They receive the Holy Spirit and they start preaching in synagogues. They preach at the temple. They get whipped and stoned, and then they go to other towns, and then they stop preaching to the Jews. They go to the Gentiles. They end up in Acts 17 and 19, one of those two, they go to Athens, Greece, which was the biggest philosophical debate capital of the world, and Paul's preaching to them. And, it's just really an incredible time in history. And if it wasn't for Paul, people like myself who are born again believers would not be born again because